Hi there, this is January the 10th, and in today's reading in Genesis in the Torah, we read about the amazing journey of Abraham's steward to find a wife for his son Isaac, the son of promise. It's really unusual in the beginning of Genesis 24 to find that the servant makes his promise, or Abraham invites him to make his promise by placing his hands between the legs of Abraham. We might find that very strange in our culture, but in their culture, this was something that brought the covenant into play, because the mark of the covenant with God, Abraham, was there in his most private parts. And so he gets the servant to make the promise that he will look for a bride for his son. This bride is going to be very important because she will also carry the child of the promise into the future. And so the servant goes off, and as he goes, he prays and he asks God to do hesed, to fulfill his covenant obligation, to show grace to his master Abraham, whose God he is, and also to show him faithfulness, emet in Hebrew. The two words often go together, hesed and emet, covenant obligation or grace, and faithfulness, or truth, we often call it as well. And in Genesis 24, 26 and 27, we find the amazing scene where God has answered the servant's prayer, and he meets Rebekah coming out of the camp of Bethuel and Laban, and she draws water not just for the servant, but also for the camels, very specifically fulfilling the prayer that the servant has prayed. And the servant bows down, he worships at that point, and he thanks God who has shown to Abraham, his master, hesed and emet, covenant, obligation and grace and faithfulness and truth. And on that basis, Bethuel and Laban, when they are told about this situation, say, we have nothing to say. This is God's doing. We're not going to discuss it. We're just going to obey it. And even Rebekah herself responds to the call of God to be Isaac's wife. And she goes back with the servant and becomes Isaac's bride. Very touchingly, very beautifully, very unlike our culture, but for their culture, a beautiful story with a wonderful ending, because Isaac and Rebekah find love in each other and care in each other. So today, as we give thanks to God for that story in Genesis, we can realize that we too are enfolded in that hesed and emet, in that covenant obligated grace, and in that truth and faithfulness of God, coming down from Abraham, coming down from Isaac to us through Jesus, the Messiah, who fulfills the promises and the covenant. Have a great January the 10th.